Hi, my name's Trenton, Catron. I'm 29 years old, and this is my story. Growing up, I was in and out of foster care until I was about 8 years old, and then from 8 to 12, I was with my biological mom and Gianna. That's kind of a rough time, but I remember a lot of it. She married this man named Chris. He he would he was pretty abusive, physically and mentally, and I had really bad asthma at that time. He would make me smoke weed with him. Um, Being that I had asthma, the only thing I really remember with that was not being able to breathe, um, while him and his friends were kind of laughing. Um, I tried to share this with my mom, and it didn't really go anywhere. It started a lot of issues. I got in trouble. She was out of the house at the time for a long time. After they split up, I want to say I was about 10 years old, and we moved back to the Dalles. We were actually living in Forest Grove when shortly after she married this guy. So we moved back to the Dalles, and she started drinking very heavily. I learned later in life that she was using other drugs. She would often keep me home so she had somebody to drink with, which that's where I really got introduced to the love of alcohol. Um, and I started stealing it from her, taking her to the bus stop, drinking with my buddies, and started constantly looking for a way to find it or get it. Um, at that age, I actually started drinking and smoking weed a lot. Um, I bought my first bag of weed from a guy at the top of the trailer park. And I remember being super disappointed with how much, because $20 was a lot to get my hands on at the time. And so to give it all away for this little bit of stuff, I was like, I was pretty disappointed. But I remember smoking it in the hills, um, in Foley Lakes there, and climbed up in the hills, and I got really, really stoned and just laughing a lot. And so that was my first real introduction of smoking weed for myself, not being made to do it. Um, yeah, so I remember a lot of abuse coming from my biological parents. Um, there was a couple times where she would like throw shoes at us. She would get super drunk and have seizures on the floor. Um, I remember giving her mouth to mouth multiple times because I was in a panic of her dying during the seizure. I didn't really know how to treat that whole thing. Um, I was just terrified the entire time. But I remember her like throwing shoes. She would fall down, throw shoes at us because she would say that we pushed her down. Being that just kind of confused with where she was. She didn't know where she, was in those moments. I remember hitting us with hangers and that kind of stuff. Um, then I got arrested. I got busted with a firework um, but that was middle school. And they actually let me go home. The principal got involved and they called the cops. And they sent me home so that way they could investigate the home situation. And I went back to my house, and Yana wasn't there. She went to the bar, so she was at the bar. And the officer was waiting at the house for her for I think like 3 hours. And she finally came rolling up, and she's like all drunk. And I gave the officer probable cause to search inside the house and kind of take his own documentation. So he's taking pictures, and that's how DHS got involved this last time with her. Yeah, so I went to jail. I was in jail for 10 nights, 11 days. The 11th morning, I got out and I was released to my aunt and uncle on my dad's side. So it was my dad's brother. And they were actually, they were actually good people. They took me in and let me live with them for a couple of years. I was a real big handful for them. But right before I got arrested, a couple months before. So I got arrested in September of that year. Well, in February of that year, my dad, my biological dad, ended up dying. So I was in 7th grade when that happened, and that took a big effect on me. So, like in school, I was actually in school when I found out. This just came up to me at the end of the day and told me that my dad had passed away. So I was pretty checked out the following years in school. I could really care less. I don't feel like I struggled too much academically, other than falling behind. That was definitely difficult, but like doing the work and that kind of stuff, I don't feel like that was really a big challenge. I just didn't do it. But being that checked out, I started smoking weed in school, bringing weed because I was started smoking weed. I started bringing it to school, smoking weed in the bathrooms at school. One time I actually smoked weed in class. In the middle class, we had a substitute. I put the books up, convinced them that we could put the books up, and it wasn't weed, it was just I had a pipe. So I was like, I would get the resin inside the pipe super hot. And I was passing it back and forth between me and this other kid, and I remember blowing like this huge cloud above the class, and then the teacher comes walking in, she can smell it. She's like kind of sniffing around, like looking around. She looked right at me, like she knew. I was a troubled kid, I was busting with weed at the school a couple times. But being checked out, kind of I isolated myself from a lot of the kids I was going to school with. They didn't like that. There was a couple of kids that tried to take advantage of that. And say things, kind of bullied me around a little bit. Just stood up for myself, so I didn't really go very far. But when I got into high school, I just kind of tried to blend in. Because at that time, I was in foster care. I got off probation for like a short period of time after the whole firework thing at the school because I was on probation. I was having a really hard time with authority. Listening to them, I had my DHS worker telling me what I could and couldn't do. Her boss was heavily involved in my case just because I was such a troubled child. My probation officer, my sisters got removed from my mom's custody too shortly after I did when I was 12. And um, yeah, she ended up just. I mean, she stuck around. I want to say for like a year, maybe a year and a half. Yana did, and she ended up just taking off. She was lying to her boyfriend, cheating on him with this other guy, and she got involved with a couple of people somewhere else, and basically just told DHS, if you want them, you can have them, type of thing. And that really affected me too. I wasn't living with Yana, and I had been with Yana for quite a few years, but just to know that I was just kind of tossed away like that really affected me. So I started running away, also dealing with the authority thing. I didn't like that, and I wanted to just smoke weed and be free and not go to school and just do what I wanted to do. And yeah, so running away got me into quite a bit of trouble. I ended up bouncing from foster home to foster home because I would be gone for days, and when they found me, they weren't going to put me back in the same home. So they put me in a different home, tried to help the situation, and I just ran away from that home. I remember being in a couple of houses where it was just like they would talk to me and tell me that I'm part of the family, but I wasn't really part of the family. And being a foster kid, you never truly feel welcome. It's difficult to explain, but it's just you don't have a place, and you don't have an actual home. It's like people try to put you places because you can't just be alone. And so that was difficult for me to deal with. I just lost my dad. My biological mom just gave us away. And they're trying to find a place for me to be. And being that I was a troubled kid, nobody really wants me, nobody likes me, Even my teachers at school didn't really weren't too fond of me. I was a troubled kid. I could really care less about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of low points in my youth and my childhood. I really struggled for a long time with just existing. I just didn't want to exist anymore. It's a lot of work to exist, and when you feel like nobody wants you, it's like, what's the point? And there was a lot of times in my life where it was like I would never expect somebody to choose me because I wouldn't choose me. And struggling with that, growing up, it kind of bled into my adulthood. In my childhood, I met this girl. I had a girlfriend at the time when I met this chick. But as soon as I met her, I was just drawn to her. It was really weird. I remember we were in class. She was a new girl in my class. This was in middle school. And I was always in a bad mood. I just lost my dad. My mom was a raging alcoholic. And so I was just always mad. I had this girlfriend that would always try to get me to smile. We were like best friends for like a year before we actually dated. And it was kind of a weird dating thing, because we had never had a boyfriend or a girlfriend before. She was like my first real girlfriend. And we didn't do anything. I mean, at the end of the day, we would hold hands to the bus and then run away from each other. It was super funny. But I was sitting in class and I would sit next to her. This was Mr. Smooch's class. And this new girl joined, and she was there for like maybe 2 days. She was in this Mr. Sweet's class, and she just kept staring at me from across the room, giving me like these, like, I don't know, the way I understand it now is like hard eyes. But at the moment, I just didn't understand why she just kept staring at me, And she kept smiling at me. I was like, what is there to be so damn happy about, And I slammed my book down on my desk, and I'm just having a hard time. My girlfriend's sitting next to me, and she's like joking with her friends and just having a grand old time. I was actually resentful. Looking back, like I was resentful at kids that actually fucking smiled and had a good time and was enjoying their day, because I couldn't muster up the ability to have a good time in my life at all. And so she's having a good time. I'm kind of resentful towards it. I slammed my book down, just like hating the world, angry with God. They took my dad, and I'm just in this bad situation where this chick staring at me. And I slammed my book down. At the end of the top of the desk, there's this little groove where you put your pencils. One of my mechanical pencils rolled off the end of my desk and onto the floor. At the beginning of the class, that was the beginning of the class when that happened, and I was unloading my backpack, getting stuff ready for class. That teacher at the beginning of the class, like first 5 minutes, he's like, "Get up, sharpen your pencils now, so that you're not disrupting the class." So this new chick has been staring at me the past couple minutes, gets up to go sharpen her pencil on the process of walking to the pencil sharpener. She picks up my mechanical pencil, sets it on my desk, and the way she spoke to me, the words, "I believe you dropped this." I don't know. It was an intentional, flirtatious way of saying it. We started spending a lot of time together and kissed this girl. I don't know, she just changed my whole way of thinking and life, and she just really wanted to fix me. She just really wanted to help me because she's seen how much pain and heartbreak I was in, and she just really wanted to help with that. And she just couldn't stand the idea of me suffering that way. From the very beginning, she just really wanted to, I don't know, like heal me and take this pain that I was in and make me feel good and better. And I really love that about her, because I fought it a lot, but I really love that about her because I didn't feel like anybody really gave a shit about me for fucking anything, I was this floater, in life that didn't have a fucking actual spot to be in. I was a troubled kid. I was grieving, the loss of a parent and then the loss of another parent. And I just had a really hard time expressing that. Anytime I've seen anybody about what I was going through, all they wanted to do was like pump me full of drugs. And I was like, he's got ADHD, he's got OCD, he's got all these problems, and nobody would just address the fact that, he's a child that lost a parent. They didn't have another parent that really helped him with that, and that would drink with him and give them this coping ability with the use of alcohol. And she let me smoke pot too. Like, she didn't like it. Marijuana was illegal at the time. She knew that I had a little pocket bong in my room, and I was smoking. And she was like, "Well, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it." Which, that's definitely not true. I was definitely gonna find a way to do it regardless. But I was doing all these things to cope with this, and this girl really wanted to remove this feeling from me. By a very young age, we actually ended up having sex. Um, and that just really solidified kind of our relationship. I mean, from that point on, we were just definitely going to be paired up for life. Even if we weren't together for life, like, we were paired up for life. She was, um, yeah, I mean, that's just my everything. She was always there from that moment on to the frontal lobe of my thoughts, my heart. Um, well, fast forward to high school. We were kind of off and on. Actually, we weren't allowed to see each other because we were very toxic for each other. I wasn't a very healthy person to be around at all. She had her own things that she struggled with. At the end of high school, I ended up having a couple different girlfriends. One of them, I ended up getting pregnant. And so I got pregnant when I was 16. 9 months down the road, I turned 17. Throughout that process, I was 17 when my daughter was born. That was a really rough situation because there was a lot of manipulation when I came to that situation. I wasn't allowed to be involved with my daughter, and then when I was, trying to be involved, and I was accused of trying to kidnap my daughter, which never happened. The only thing that happened was I learned that my daughter was alive. I didn't even know my daughter was alive until 2 days after she was born. And it was weird. The day that I found that out, I had people apparently looking for me because of the idea of me kidnapping my daughter. Don't even know where that came from. But that was just like the start off of the craziness that I had to deal with. And if I had to do whatever this person wanted me to do in order to be involved in my daughter's life. And if I didn't do it, then I wasn't allowed to see my daughter. I was very young father, and I didn't know my rights. Her aunt works at the courthouse, so she was guided and scripted and knew exactly what she could and couldn't do, and legally, and she just had me right where she wanted me the entire time. She was a very toxic person, very dangerous person, manipulated the whole situation. I ended up just moving on from her, and that was a difficult thing because anytime I had another girlfriend, she would blow up and freak out and make this whole thing. And just having a girlfriend, I wasn't allowed to see my daughter now. I don't know how many times that was thrown at me. But I ended up running into my old friend from middle school, the one that wrote her name on my heart. And we started dating, fastly got engaged. Shortly after we got back together as adults, I found out that I had gotten this other girl pregnant with my son, and that she wasn't a very trustworthy person. So I really didn't trust her word when she was saying, it's your child, I'm pregnant. She was pretty obsessive and crazy. She was just crazy. It was just kind of a random hookup thing. So I didn't believe her. I just thought she was having a hard time getting off the pill or whatever. So shortly after into this relationship with this girl and this engagement, I learned about son. My son was born. Shortly after he was born, I got sole custody of him because his biological mom was just not a healthy person at all. She had her own struggles with alcohol or drugs, and I tried to uh, encourage her to remain involved, try to give her help as much as I could. It didn't really work out, and I guess that's just how it was meant to be. But me and this girl that I've been connected to since I was 12 years old ended up getting married, and she's my wife now. Well, throughout the introduction and the transition from childhood into adulthood, I really adapted this ability to drink, and I drank a lot. I hung out with a lot of people that were alcoholics, that spent most of their time drinking, and I learned this ability on how to drink from my biological mom when I was a kid. They really provided these people that I hung out with. They provided me an environment that gave me the opportunity to really exceed in this ability to drink. And I got really good at it. It's like all we did is just stand around and drink and bullshit, get in fights, do stupid stuff while we were drinking. In my early 20s, I started fighting fires, and I just really hung out with this really rough, around the edges group of guys. And that was like the thing that we just did, is we just drank. Well, it started, becoming a big issue in my life. That's where the unmanageability comes into play when it comes to my life. For one, I could not drink. Well, I didn't think that it was a problem. I didn't see a reason why to not drink, especially hanging out with this group of people. It's like, why would you not drink? That's just the thing that we do. But my wife grew up in an alcoholic environment. She was very familiar with that. I wouldn't say introduced me to my 12-step program that I'm in currently, because I was kind of. I remember my biological mom. I think she was court ordered to go to it, so I went like once or twice. I had a couple of friends that had parents that went to it. So I remember just hanging out with a friend and going to it when I was a kid. Only just a very short handful of times. But I remember seeing this girl, my wife, and at this place. I think it was a speaker meeting, to be honest. This was really cool. And that's actually when I tried to get her to kiss me the first time. Back when I still had that other girlfriend. So I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't actually know anything about it, to be honest. And so my wife encouraged me to get involved into my program. That's one thing that I've really gotten out of this. Gotten out of my program is how to heal, give me the ability to, or the tools to constantly grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But before I actually, I was, I would go to kind of get her off my ass. I never took it serious. I just like, shut up, leave me alone, um, and so I would go to these meetings, and I wasn't really, I was never all in. I was always kind of checked out. I didn't want to be there. I would look around and I would see people, I would talk to people and be like, just have this mentality with like, I'm not like you guys. I'm not, I don't have this fucking problem, so I can't be, an alcoholic myself. Even though I've had DUIs in the past, and I've just had all these issues because of drinking. Any kind of criminal thing as an adult, even as a youth, most of the time there was alcohol involved. So if you pull up my criminal record, anything that you see on there is most likely has alcohol involved. It's an alcohol involved incident. They would cause a lot of fights with me and my wife. I would say a lot of hurtful things um, when I was drunk. There was a lot of feelings that I mean I have and had, resentments, frustrations, and stuff that I don't normally share because I know it's a difficult topic, and I don't know how to properly, I guess, address those and present those to her in a healthy way to actually make progress and to get through that together. And so I would hold it in, and then I would drink, and it would all just come flooding out, And in the process of doing that, I would say a lot of hurtful things. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes, it would just come out. Either way, I did a lot of damage in my marriage. Did a lot of hurtful things. Now, I did a lot of alcohol removes the ability to make good decisions with me. I put my kids in danger. Um, I put them in dangerous situations. Just them being around alcohol was a dangerous situation. Drinking and driving. I did that. I don't know how many times I've done that. I've got 3 DUIs on my record. Almost 4. I couldn't tell you how many times I actually drank and drove, before. I just got caught that many times. There were times where I just was, I'd be drinking at a friend's house and I'd wake up and I'm home. And apparently I drove home. Whoa. Thank God I never killed anybody, because I couldn't live with myself for that. But it caused a lot of issues. It got to the point where my wife would, if I opened a soda, it would make my wife's blood pressure spike because of the sound, sound. It would trigger her because she is not an alcoholic. She never has been. I don't know if she ever will be. But dealing and marrying an alcoholic, and going to her 12-step programs and being involved in the meetings, it's taught her a lot of things. And so just being around alcohol, she just can't stand it. She can't deal with it. Like, throws her into a panic attack, basically, like an anxiety attack. This me being an alcoholic is something that has really consumed my life. I'm only 29 years old. I'll be 30 years old in just 2 weeks or so. and I've only got 77 days sober. Let's see, 75 days sober, because it's that controlling. I'm that obsessed with it. My wife and I are currently separated because I started drinking again. And this time she just doesn't want to be around that. And she kind of gave me that ultimatum a little while ago with, it's either me or the alcohol type of thing. Not that we're getting a divorce, but she just said, like, I can't live with it. So if you choose to have it, then you're choosing that over me. And I totally understand, I'm not a fun person to be around. I thought I was. I thought I was a fun person to drink with. And, I thought I had a lot of fun. But that feeling of fun only really lasts for like the first 2 beers, and then after that, it's like, those first 2 beers wouldn't last very long at all. Here recently, I've struggled the most because this person, there's been a lot of inconsistencies in my life. I lost a lot of people in my life. At a very young age, I lost my parents, which though they're supposed to, people are just supposed to have parents, and I just don't. I never have. My wife has been the only consistent person in my life since I was 12 years old. Going through school, we were kind of off and on because we weren't allowed to be around each other. But anytime we got around each other, man, I don't know. It's like white on rice. We just are meant to be together. And so, losing her, actually having her move out and just really not wanting to be around me. We've been married. We've been together for about 10 years. Married for 7. Having her gone is difficult for me because I said she's the only consistent thing that's existed in my life. As far as like career paths and stuff like that go, I fought fires for 5 years. I worked in construction. These are all fields that are just really like rough around the edges. Packed full. You can find alcoholics in both of these groups. I riffed for a long time. Then I moved over to building houses, and that's where the construction kind of comes in place, and finished carpentry work. I just went to school for becoming an A&P mechanic to work on airplanes. Shortly after that, I went to school for 2 years. It could have been 18 months. But I ended up leaving, missing a summer semester, so that way I could go to rehab because of my drinking. So I went to rehab for 35 days. And while I was there too, I felt, I convinced myself that I was like better than everybody else because I didn't do this drug or I didn't do this, so this guy had a way more crazy story. I'm like, I just drink too much. I don't know how many times I said that while I was there. I just drink too much. My wife just doesn't like my drinking. The entire time I was there. I really did what I could to not identify that problem. Um, yeah, so I missed this semester. Thank God I was able to come back and actually finish the program. So I came back, finished my schooling, and tested with the FA, got my license, I got this job. Um, in the process of testing with the FA, I actually got a DUI, two DUIs before I got my second two DUIs. And I guess let's tell you a little bit about that. So I got a DUI, and then 4 months later, I got another DUI. So I got a DUI for my first one in the state of Washington, my second one in the state of Oregon. Um, yeah, and so I was put on probation, and I broke that probation requirements because I was drinking. I pissed 30. Any offense is 30 days. So I got 30 days in jail. I sat in there for 23 days because I got 7 days off for good behavior or whatever. So January of last year, I sat in the Goldendale, Fayette County Jail for 23 days. When I got out, I stayed sober for a couple months. But I wasn't gonna, doing my program that, I needed to do. I didn't have the support system that was recommended having. I didn't take my condition seriously of being an alcoholic. I didn't even know what that meant, to be honest. So after I relapsed, and in the process of me being sober, a lot of good things were happening in my life. I bought my first house. My wife and I bought our first house. I got a job. Well, I got the license from the FAA to work on airplanes. I got the house. I got the job right next to my house. Literally, just like 2 minutes down the road by bike. I could be there in 1 minute by car. I can almost see the airport from my house. That close to work, and it's just like, God was just really working in my life. And then, I decided to just have a beer one day with a couple old buddies that I used to drink and party with after riffing one day. And I do construction on the side. And so I'd spend my weekends working and just doing things like that, like a roof or siding or whatever it is. Any kind of work I can get my hands on. Just decided to drink one day. Well, brought up a lot of hurt in my marriage and a lot of pain from my wife. Put kind of a wedge between us. Started fighting a little bit because she was resentful and I was resentful. But I often use the excuse like, I didn't do anything. All I did was have a beer. I didn't do anything wrong this time. There was nothing, I'm not in trouble by law, this time or whatever. Just to try to justify, that one time drinking. And I would use that to convince myself that I could just go back out and start drinking. And it was just like 1 would turn to 3, 3 would turn to 6, 6 would turn to 12, 12 would turn to 24, and it literally doubles, and it happens so fast. And fighting with my wife, I got resentful, towards her from the way that she was treating me, but I've said a lot. Like I said, I said a lot of hurtful things in my life. I've done a lot of things with just even getting in trouble by law. Just that stress, anxiety of having to deal with the courts. Like her husband's is, going to probation. Doesn't have a license. Is doing, of course, we got to pay fines because of, the way that her husband was, behaving or the things that he's done. It's almost like he's just a grown child and we need a babysitter type of thing. And it sucks even just, be out drinking and like, I don't know if I'm gonna get home. She doesn't know when I'm gonna be home. She doesn't know how I'm gonna get home, if I'm gonna be safe, who I'm gonna be with, if I cheated on her before, and so that's in the back of my mind if I simply get drunk and cheat on me type of thing, which there's a lot of things that I'm not proud of. And I'm still in the process of trying to make amends. And I think for some of the things, it's like I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life. And the only way I can really do that and prove, that I am sorry and I am, remorseful is by staying sober and not drinking. Which takes daily work for me. I'm very active in my program. I'm very involved. I work on my program every day. I have people that I'm in contact with every day that hold me accountable, that help me with the work that I'm responsible for doing. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot on how to deal with life on life's terms. I'm definitely not perfect at that. But, like I said, I'm only 75 days in. Which means I got a lot left to learn, and I'm very excited about it.